This is the third video for 4.2. We're talking some more about graphing polynomial functions and about their zeros, and we're going to look at those functions when we have multiple zeros of the same thing, right? So like when we have a factor that's been squared or cubed or something. So let's look at this function. Here's where it is, down here, right? There's x minus 1 squared, x plus 2 cubed, x plus 1. So what that means is that, like, when I factored it all out, it would have been x minus 1 times x minus 1 times x plus 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 1. Okay? So there are only 3 zeros. But if I were to multiply this out, I would have a lot more than a degree of 3. In fact, for each one of these factors, I would have an x. So I would have 2 here, 3 here, that's 5, 1 more, that's 6. So this would be a 6th degree polynomial. So degree 6, but only 3 zeros. All right, so what happens when we have this squared? And remember, I told you, if there were ever duplicates in the factors, you couldn't just alternate one the other, right? You had to check whether it was going to be positive or negative. So we want to look at what happens to the graph. So sometimes it crosses and sometimes it doesn't cross. You notice here it touches, but it doesn't cross. So this touches, this crosses, and this crosses with kind of a little wiggle in it. So those are 3 different situations that show up in our factors. All right, so first of all, let's look at 1. So there's the factor x minus 1, and that means that the 0 is 1. So here's my 0, right? And there are 2 of them. There are 2 of that factor. What that means is it's not going to change signs there. When you go on one side or another, this thing's always going to be positive. So it's not going to change signs here. It's going to stay. It's going to touch and stay whatever. It's positive, it touches, it stays positive. If it were negative, it would touch and stay negative, right? We look at how many they were, this 2 here, and that is what we call the multiplicity. So this has a 0 at 1, and it has multiplicity of 2. Okay, now let's look at the next one. Here at our x plus 2. Well, the 0 there would be negative 2, and there are 3 of them. So it's an odd number, so it will cross the graph there. You notice that it crosses with a little wiggle, a wiggle that kind of looks like our x cubed function, right? That is exactly what's going to happen whenever you have a multiplicity of 3. Or 5 would look very much the same. So our 0 of negative 2 has multiplicity of 3. Okay, and then when we look at the last one here, this is the 0 at negative 1. And there it is at negative 1. And you see that the power here is just 1. There's only one of these factors. There's only one of these x plus 1s. So negative 1 has a multiplicity of 1. Okay, so this is kind of how our graph looks. Now we said it had degree 6. And you notice over here that if we add up these multiplicities, it adds up to 6. And so we can still keep track of how many zeros we've accounted for. It should still add up to the degree of our polynomial. You notice that 6 is an even number. And so it should go up on both ends, right? The end behavior should be up, up. So goes up when you go to the left, it goes up when you go to the right. It almost looks like we're going straight up, but it really is going slightly over. That means it goes up really fast, right? With a 6th degree, it goes up really fast. Okay? All right, let's look at this function. All right, this looks even more crazy bumps and everything. So let's look here. We have our first factor here is x minus 1. That means there's a 0 at positive 1. And you notice this exponent is 2. There's 2 of them, so it has multiplicity of 2. Okay, and you notice that at 1, when it has multiplicity of 2, it just touches, right? So it comes through, it touches, and it stays positive. All right, the next one would be x plus 2, and that means there's a 0 at negative 2, and it has the degree of 3, so that means negative 2 has multiplicity of 3. And that means that at negative 2, it crosses, because 3 is odd, but it crosses with a little bit of a wiggle, like our x cubed function. All right, and then the last one here, the factor is x, and that means the 0 is 0, the number 0, and it has a 3 for the exponent, so that means that 0 has multiplicity of 3. Okay, and sure enough, at 0, it crosses. Multiplicity of 3 is odd, so it does cross, but it crosses with a little bit of a wiggle, right? Now, what's our degree of this polynomial? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's the 8-degree polynomial. You notice the multiplicity adds up to 8, and it's an even degree, so it goes up on both sides, right? Goes up, up. All right, here's another function. You notice that this time it goes up to the right and down to the left, so we should expect an odd degree. And sure enough, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my degrees, if I multiplied out all these x's, I would have an x to the 7th. So my first factor here is x plus 1, and so that means my 0 is negative 1, and it has multiplicity of 2. Okay, multiplicity of 2 means that it touches. Okay, it doesn't cross, it stays negative on both sides, it just touches. My next factor is x, just x, and that means that the 0 is the number 0, and it has degree 3, so that means that 0 has multiplicity of 3. And when it crosses at this 0, it crosses because it's odd, and it crosses with a little bit of a wiggle because it's a 3. It's bigger than 1, right? The last one, my 0 is 2, and it has multiplicity of 2. Let's try going the other way. Okay, so let's draw the graph. Let's draw the graph ourselves. Now, we're not going to have it as accurate as they did, as it does if you use a program, but we can certainly know a lot about it, and it will be enough, right? So first of all, let's look at our zeros, sorry, and the multiplicity. Okay, so here we have the first factor is x. That means our 0 is 0, and it's to the first degree, so it has multiplicity of 1. Our second factor is x plus 2, so that means that our 0 is negative 2, and it's to the second degree, so multiplicity is 2. Our third factor is x minus 2, so our 0 is 2, and it's to the second degree, so our multiplicity is 2. Our third factor is x plus 1, and that means that our 0 is negative 1, and it's to the third degree, so multiplicity is 3. All right, so when we graph this, we know that we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is an 8-degree polynomial, right? 8th degree polynomial. We can, we know we cross at 0. We know we cross at 2 and -2 and -1. Okay? 8th degree means it's going to go up on both ends. So it's coming up here. When we get to -2, notice that -2 has multiplicity of 2. So it's going to touch but not cross. Right? So somewhere it has to turn around and come back down to our -1, and at -1 multiplicity is 3. So it's going to cross, but it's going to cross with a little bit of a wiggle. It has to come back up to 0. 0 has multiplicity of 1, so it's just going to cross right through there. And then finally our 2 has multiplicity of 2. So it has to come up here and turn around, and then it's going to just touch because it's 2, and then it goes up. And just like we thought, it's going up on both ends. Now, my stylus doesn't draw this very well. You'll be able to do a lot better job with a pencil. How far down it goes, I'm not all that interested in. You could find out by plugging in a number and getting an estimate. It might go really tall, or it might be really close to 0. This would be good enough for what I want you to do. Okay? I want you to show me what it looks like at 0, what the shape of the graph is. Does it cross? Does it cross with a wiggle? Does it touch? That kind of stuff. Notice that there were 4 zeros, and the degree is 8, right? So we know that at the most we could have 7 local minimums or maximums, as we mentioned in the previous video. And here we end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So not more than 7. It's okay to have less. You can't have more. Here's your quiz question for 4.2c. Factor this polynomial, x to the 4th plus x to the cubed. Should be easy to factor. Don't make this harder than it is. 0 is one of your zeros. I'll just tell you that right now. I want to know what is the multiplicity of 0. So write your answer just as a number. Just tell me it has multiplicity of 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or whatever you want to say. So just write the number.